Bungie's new IP that we've heard about for a little while now might ditch the Tiger engine and shift to UE5. So there's been a little bit about this over the last day or two, but it sounds like basically they've had several unannounced projects that are in development, including some new IPs in the incubation phase. The company has been actively posting new job positions for these unannounced projects. Some of them hint a potential shift away from the Tiger engine, which is what they've traditionally used, it sounds like. So there's a few things. It kind of sounds like they came out and kind of talked away on it a little bit too. They said it didn't seem like they were confirming or denying it, but there were some details that popped up. So like one particular job ad that stood out was specifically mentioning Unreal Engine 5. Which is the latest generation of Epic's Unreal Engine, of course, and released last year. So it was a job listing for a gameplay engineer lead who would be working on the new IP and genre at Bungie. And then I think we had heard about this previously, but like a lighthearted and whimsical type of character base for this game. So this one obviously has a little bit of the like where there's smoke, there's fire, right? Like when these things pop up, usually it gets you thinking like, okay, this is probably fairly legit. But Dave, do you think there's any validity to this? Do you think they're going to go more with the streamlined engine, which is UE5 at this point? Or do you think they're going to stick with that Tiger engine?
Well, I mean, for them, Tiger Engine's been pretty, pretty trustworthy, and they know it inside and out. If they are trying to bring in a more, I guess, diverse developers to work on different projects, and if they're, since it's basically Bungie, right? That's doing that. So, a lot of their other, I guess, these games that they're working on with Sony, assisting on, I should say, they may behoove them to actually learn Unreal 5, to help, with the other games develop. But that's just a kind of a speculation thing. As far as do I think they? I mean, Unreal 5 is a pretty sound engine. Pretty from what we understand, it makes it a lot easier for developers to jump in with the assets and stuff and jump in. And if more people know it, you have a good crew of people that know that engine. That just means your game's going to get done faster and hopefully better and more involved. So is it I have no insight knowledge, so could say for sure whether they would do that or not. I'm sure there's probably just as many negatives to dump in the engine and go into Unreal as there is, you know, going to Unreal for future projects. But if it gives them the opportunity to learn it, then I would think, why not?
So I do like what you bring up about that, right? Is obviously like it would make them more flexible in regards to future projects and stuff, potentially, possibly working with other groups and being able to adapt a little bit better. If they can pick up the Tiger engine, bounce over to another engine, and have some familiarity, some cross training, as it were, that would be a good thing. It makes me wonder if maybe there's a world where we could end up seeing, especially since Bungie's kind of got all these split teams where they're doing some different projects, if maybe we'd see a world where you've got UE5 and Tiger Engine going basically in tandem at the same time, like working on different projects, utilized in different projects, and just depending on the scope, they use accordingly going from there. Plume, what do you think? Smoke on this one, or do you think it's just do you think it's a fizzled out fire?
I think like there's a lot of developers moving over to Unreal Engine 5, right? I think just from like looking at some of the tools within Unreal Engine 5, it just makes game development a lot easier. Like there's just a lot of like plug and play, like drag and drop type of stuff that at least that I've seen, stuff that like if you download on your computer, if you know nothing about development, you could even play around with it, like that character creator, meta human or whatever it's called, like that type of stuff will just take off a lot of stress, I think, on development teams. Especially when we look at what's happening right now in gaming with all these games coming out broken, games having to continuously be delayed. I think there's a huge need in game development for reducing the complexity of making these massive games. And if Unreal Engine can do that, I think it'll be something that is a no-brainer for most studios to jump over to.
Sure. I like that. I like that. Sour, what's your quick take on this one before we move on to Louis?
Yeah, I think all you guys hit the nail on the coffin with Unreal Engine. Basically, like Web Dave started to mention, a lot of the developers are moving to Unreal Engine because the tools that it has, as you all iterated, it makes development faster. And something also that I believe it's going to happen more and more with Unreal Engine as more of these developers create assets, they're able to share between each other. So that will also help a lot as time moves on because so many developers are using Unreal Engine 5. And we've seen indie developers create already like magnificent games. So I can only imagine, the big studios when they really dedicate time and resource to these games, they would look amazing. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Sweet. I agree. I'm looking forward to when we actually start seeing these games, right? Because I feel like we keep hearing about all these things that are coming. All these things are coming like time and time again, and here we are still waiting. Like, okay, let's see these things actually in action. The little tech demos and stuff that we've seen obviously are pretty awesome, and it's exciting to see where they're going with it. But to see that on a full scale, I think will be really exciting. Crazy, real quick. Before I have you chime in on this, I just wanted to say, since I wasn't here for the conversation earlier, I thought that why you got arrested earlier this week was because you mentioned guns, and I figured that you flexed your arms to them, and they didn't take you seriously, and so they took you in for questioning because they thought you were unstable. But anyways, real quick, what's your take on this UE5 situation?
If it's true, it's a great engine to work on. I mean, we have seen how UE5 works. I mean, we've seen Fortnite and the way it looks, and we've seen a couple games on UE5, and man, they look beautiful. They look gorgeous. So yeah, I mean, why not move on and try something new? Especially since a lot of developers have said it's a lot more easier to use. I mean, am I right with those? I think Elaine was one of them that was talking about.
Dave, if you had a choice on what Bungie's next IP was going to be, what type of genre it was going to be, what would you pick?
Not a game of service. Saying. But is it ow hurts. Not really. I'm not. I mean, they first person shooters they're really good at those. So I would say continue something like that, but maybe a totally different, vein genre. I mean, you put the work that they've done with the originally on Halo and then now Destiny. They have such a they have a really good understanding of how to do a multiplayer shooter. Maybe something that could compete with Grand Theft Auto would be crazy to see them do something like that. I don't know if it's possible.
That would be pretty wild.
Hypothetical. That's my thing. I think that'd be crazy.
I would like to say something because Mr. Webb just gave me an idea. Can you guys imagine that actually Bungie could be working on something that can compete against Call of Duty? Can you actually think that can happen? They can actually make a new war type of game.
Yes,
that could be something that could be.
Yeah, I think depending on what type of budget they get, depending on what the idea is, right? Like depending on what they bring to the table, if it's something that's already been done over and over again, I don't know if it'll gain traction. But you look at something like Fortnite, right? Like when we saw Fortnite way back in the day, and we saw what it was originally going to be, we're like, oh, this looks interesting, I guess. And then when it finally released, we're like, what is this? Like, this isn't what anyone wanted. But then once they saw the battle royale stuff and they made their own version of it, it took off. And that was like the initial spark of those like battle royale games and stuff. So you look at it and it's like the potential of someone striking gold on something like that again and having that like moment where suddenly we've got like a whole new genre or something that like shows up in the industry and suddenly we see like a bunch of other people cloning them. It would be interesting to see. It'd be really cool. I'd be super excited if we saw another genre like that just kind of pop up. Battle royales took over, and I think it's going to continue to get mined over the next few years. But the question is, right, is like, what is the next game type, right? So I guess only time will tell. But I'm looking forward to seeing who it is that catches lightning in a bottle again, just like what Fortnite and Battle Royale or PUBG did.